Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
So this particular Shabbat is an interesting Shabbat for me personally. So one of the things that's really nice about being rabbi of a congregation, when you have a son named Noah, for his bar mitzvah, you're able to give him Parashat Noach for his bar mitzvah. This week is Parashat Chaye Sarah, which happens to be our daughter's Torah portion from a number of years ago, and she's having a lovely time in college. Thank you for asking. It also happens to be, I guess, a little bit of an emotional day for me today, because today also is my mother's birthday. So it's and a few weeks ago, I was honored to officiate at her unveiling back when I was visiting my family in Houston. And so I was thinking about the notion of birthdays and yortzites and Torah portions and how all of it sort of swirls together. Because in Judaism, traditionally speaking at least, we don't observe birthdays. Matter of fact, there's only one birthday mentioned in the entirety of the Torah. For the most part, when we meet the central characters in our narratives, they're already full-fledged living human beings. So the only person whose birthday is mentioned, does anyone know? Anybody at all? It's okay if you don't. It's Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the only one whose birthday is mentioned. And this is not the Pharaoh of the Exodus, but this is the Pharaoh of Joseph, who is having a hard time falling asleep because of his weird dreams, and he asks for Chronicles to be read and the stories, and that's where he learns about Joseph. And so because of that, we don't really focus on birthdays, at least traditionally speaking. Instead, we focus on yortzites. And the question would be, why would we do that? Why not birthdays? Well, birthdays, if you think about it, is an accomplishment for the mother, but not necessarily so much for us. But yortzites are all about the lives we've led, about our legacies, about the experiences we've had, about the stories we've shared, about the lives we've impacted. And so I was thinking about that on today of all days, on my mother's birthday, because the purpose of our Jewish journeys, the purpose of our lives really is to find meaning, to share meaning, to make memories, to share experiences, to share stories, and to leave a lasting impact of love, a lasting impact of strength, a lasting impact of accomplishment. And each of us gets to define that differently. Sometimes it's a lasting legacy of music. Sometimes it's a lasting legacy of intellectual endeavor. Sometimes it's a lasting legacy of support of our sacred organizations and institutions. Sometimes it's a lasting legacy is defined through family. But each of us is on our life's journey, as we all know. We never know when the journey is going to come to an end, just like we never know when the journey is going to begin. All we can do is really focus on the moments that we have. And then to make sure that we share those moments with others. And that is part of the beauty and the meaning of Shabbat, is that we take time out of our week. And by the way, Shabbat is the only time that is ordained by God. Every other holiday we do, you think, okay, well, God told us to do that. Yes, but we set when it falls in motion. God said, observe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Passover and Shavuot. But there are days we can't do those. For example, you cannot observe Yom Kippur on a Thursday evening, because then you wouldn't have time to get ready for Shabbat, because it would go right into it. So we set everything in the calendar except Shabbat, which comes every seventh day, whether we're ready or not. And for us clergy, it's more often whether we're not ready than we are, but that's a different story. But it's a time to pause and reflect not just about the sacredness and the holiness of community, but also about the sacredness and holiness of our lives and the people we impact. Yeah, Yom Kippur is about teshuvah, about trying to realign ourselves. And yes, it's a very powerful moment, but it doesn't have to be the only time that we engage into Shuva of realignment, of Shuv of returning. Each and every Shabbat, we can create space to be able to do that as well. And then to share that realignment with others, with our families, with our friends, with our communities. And so I challenge you on this Shabbat, what are you going to do next Shabbat to be able to create more meaning and to add to your legacy? I know for one person it's going to be her bat mitzvah, but for everyone else, what do you think you can do to add to your legacy so that way when we share stories about you, it's not necessarily about your birthday or about your yahrzeit, but instead about the life you're currently living. And then to be able to add legacy and meaning for other people's lives. That way we can all build upon each other in the sacredness of sacred community, of sacred family, and of sacred time. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.